All right, good evening, everyone, and we are finally back. This is the War Games podcast number 17. Good return after a couple of weeks off over the holidays. Hopefully you are all having a great night tonight. As you can see from the title, tonight is a bit of a special night here for the channel. Instead of doing the normal ArmA podcast, which we do weekly, tonight we're going to be going over some of the different racing and stuff that you guys see me do in Assetto Corsa and Dream EXE. Thank you very much for that follow and supporting the channel. And since we are going over the sim racing and so on that I do here on the channel, we are also joined by a very special guest. Any of you guys that watch my Assetto streams know him very well. That is the man, the myth, the legend that is Mr. Bobby Pennington. Thank you very much for joining me, and good evening, Mr. Pennington.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, Jeremy. It's my pleasure to be here. Sounds very interesting what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be going over.
Definitely, and hopefully the guys watching at home will also enjoy it. So any of you guys that have been following the channel for a while now know that I do quite a bit of sim racing. I've been doing more and more lately, especially after getting my VR headset. So go ahead and swap over to the actual screen now. What you guys are looking at on screen is a race that we just did, was it last night we did this race, GT4s at Zandvoort. And me looking around in the car that is wearing my VR headset, and it is completely transformed racing for me. I definitely could never go back. And Bobby here has recently gotten a taste of what it is like to be in a VR headset. And before we really get into all of that, first let's get to know the man. So Bobby, give us a little bit of rundown on yourself. Where are you from? What got you interested in motorsports?
Well, I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up playing ball and riding dirt bikes, motocross, enduro. So, at an early age, I had a love for things that go fast, things that are a little bit on the edge. And living in the South, you tend to uh, watch NASCAR back when they actually drove and raced instead of what you see now, which is wrestling on wheels.
Yeah.
But so I've just always enjoyed things that go fast. And I was fortunate. My dad liked Formula One. He liked Jackie Stewart. So that was at an early age, I had a love for road racing. We didn't get much of it here, but every now
Yeah,
and then we would.
which is rare in your neck of the woods.
Very, very rare. Uh, but that's how I got started with motorsports. And then as you start growing older, I lost the ability to play ball through injuries and stuff like that. And I took up golf, and I love golf. It's probably my first love, but second would be the sim
Me.
racing.
Oh, sim racing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's understood though. That's understood. But yeah, the sim racing is, it's something that I got into really by accident because it came from, I'm from an era where we didn't have all of this nice stuff that we have now. We didn't even have the Sega consoles in the beginning. We had a thing called Intellivision that had this little directional pad, and you look down on a map of these cars going around a track. And I loved that. And so when Sega came out,
Is it wrong that you've got about 10 years on me, but I actually still remember that?
no, it's not wrong. That means that you either had some good brothers, good friends, good parents. But you know, if for me, I'd much rather be interacting with something, interacting with other people, as just looking at the boob tube. I mean, you watch TV, you go mind numb. There's no
Mm-hmm.
stimulation there.
And that's something we were, me and you were actually talking about the other night. And, at the risk of being the asshole that I am, you are older than what I guess kind of the general demographic of gamers are. And, if you want to tell the guys your age, you can.
Yeah,
So you are how old?
I am 53 years old. I was born in 1964, and I still feel like I'm 25.
See,
That's the
now,
thing, and I like hanging out. I like hanging out with the younger guys because it keeps me young.
well, see, those of us that are in the know, we know that's not old. That's well seasoned. You're like a fine piece of meat. Uh,
Yeah, and that's funny coming from you, the way that you chew me up in these races now.
yeah. Well,
So,
the reason I bring that up is because, like I said, you are kind of outside of that normal demographic of gamers. Granted, and I've talked about this on a previous podcast before. People always envision, like the 13-year-old kid in his parents' basement, covered in zits playing games. But we
yeah,
know, I mean, at least it's fairly common knowledge now that the average age of someone that says they play video games regularly is now like 35. So you're still above that age, and we were talking about this the other night that you have friends that are around the same age that just don't get it. They don't understand playing games, and we were talking about how it keeps you active. Not necessarily that you're out running around and shit like that, but it keeps your mind active more so than just sitting there plopped down on the couch watching a football game or something. Because with what we do with the racing sims and also what I do with ArmA, your mind is constantly active. And believe it or not, those of you guys listening, like when we get done with these races, especially the longer ones that we do, the pseudo endurance races, you're exhausted, not just physically but mentally. You're absolutely exhausted by the time you're done with that race. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a good thing. It means you're keeping your mind active. You're doing something. And on top of that, you're interacting with people the entire time. And I know for me and Bobby, that's the biggest draw for us. Especially despite me being the asshole that I am a fairly sociable guy most of the time, provided you're not a fucking idiot. And so is that what kind of brought you into the, not just sim racing, but kind of the multiplayer side of things was kind of the social aspect.
It is. I signed up at Race Department, oh, let's see, almost 8 years ago. And I was just a lurker and a guy that downloaded stuff. And
And
some things, some
he
things.
means mods, not porn, guys. He downloaded that other places. You can't
Oh,
get
we're
porn
not supposed to
on
tell
Race
them about
Department.
that. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the back rooms that you guys can't see on Race Department.
So you've never shown them Dirk's posts?
Yeah.
But seriously, so I started doing that. Then I fell off a ladder and got hurt, and that took my ability away to get out and play golf and the stuff that I like doing. And it just pushed me more and more into this. And then I guess it was the fall of 2016. I thought, I'm going to start using the forum a little bit and interacting with some of these guys. And I did, and it it was just neat to have guys that you connect with because you have a common interest. You can be completely different in life. You have that common interest there. And so that's what started pulling me in. And then when I signed up to race, I was looking for something to have a little bit of competition, because I like competition.
Mm-hmm.
So that started that. And then I found out the social part of it, which is probably the biggest thing for me. And what we do there at Race Department, it's my little way. I can't make skins, I can't make tracks, I don't do car models, stuff like that. But I can provide an avenue for other guys to enjoy it, just like the other guys that provide us with the mods. It's just our way of giving back.
Right, and one of the guys in chat there, Chance brings up it's similar to the common interests that guys have here in the 506, and it is. It's very similar in the sense that we have guys from all fucking walks of life here within the unit, but we've all come together around this thing, around ArmA 3 and doing the realism thing, and it's very much so the same aspect with Race Department and sim racing. There's guys, like Bobby said, that are completely different in life, but we have that common interest of sim racing. And, just like with any other community, you get the asshats that, don't really belong anywhere. They're basically a 6-foot walking bag of dog shit, but...
They don't play well with others.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't really... They don't last very long, we'll put it that way. Especially
they
when...
feel the discomfort.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the military, time and time again, if you have a fucking idiot in your unit in the military or anything you're doing, even in normal everyday work, if you've got a fucking idiot there that just doesn't mesh with everyone, they'll weed themselves out given enough
Sure.
time. You don't have to do anything. They'll take care of it themselves.
We had one earlier this year that raced with us, and I know we're not going to mention any names, but I know you know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come on and act like a complete, as you say, asshat, and would kind of monopolize the time with all these silly little giggles and things, and people just got to the point where they were ignoring him because it didn't fit in with any of us, and we weren't doing anything to make him feel uncomfortable other than we just kind of let his comments go and we went on to the next guy.
Right.
And what's cool, what I think is so cool is, I'm looking in the chat and one guy's 52. So there's another senior brother right there. That's awesome. Got one that's 42. But like Jeremy and I, he's from the north, I'm from the south. But like I thought I was going to miss the beginning of the podcast because I'm sitting there banging my head to the music, to the intro music. We have a love of music together. We like the same kinds. So you start to get to know people, and the only difference is I can't reach out and shake your hand.
Right, and that is one thing that has definitely surprised me with the communities I've been in recently, because I've done online gaming for like well over a decade now, and been in a lot of different communities. And the other communities I was in, I automatically had shared interests with people because I was in there with my brothers.
Yeah.
So I automatically had that connection. But like coming into the 506th, I immediately had connections with the other guys in my fire team, guys like Hammer and Person and those guys that all of you know from being around my channel, and as well as Drum. When me and him got introduced, we became really good friends very quickly. And the same happened with me and Bobby. And the thing that surprised me is because when I got introduced to Race Department, I had gotten a steering wheel and some pedals for myself, just to kind of screw around, because I've always loved racing games. I've just never taken them very seriously. I've always played with a controller and stuff. And then I decided, you know what, fuck it. I want to, like actually play these games properly. I'm going to grab myself a cheap wheel and a set of pedals. So I grabbed a Thrustmaster TMX wheel, which was like $200. And Soto, who all of you guys know and absolutely fucking love, he's also a sim racer. And when I just casually mentioned one day that I bought a steering wheel, and he was like, well, hey, if you got a wheel, look into getting these pedals, because they're going to be a lot better for you than the plastic pieces of shit that come with it. And he's like, while you're at it, check out this website. This is where I race with guys online. And it's kind of a community, almost like what we have here. So he introduced me to Race Department. I went over there and signed up, and he immediately paid for my premium membership and bought me all the DLCs for Assetto Corsa and said, come on, we're going racing. And so that's how I got into RD. It was because of Soto, who Bobby also knows. And so when I do, kick Bobby's ass in a race, Soto is the person he has to thank for it.
Exactly. I still regret meeting him.
Yeah. And we all fucking do, because he ends up being more goddamn popular than any of us. I shit you not, I spend more time damn near in my streams telling people whether or not Soto is flying or streaming than I do talking about my own shit.
Yeah.
And Tenkata, thank you for the follow and supporting the channel. I appreciate it. And so that's how I was brought into Race Department, and I signed up and did a couple of races, and it was all right. I enjoyed the races. I was absolute dog shit, as you would expect, as everybody is. And as everybody does, I was down on myself, like, oh, Jesus, I can't do this. I'm horrible, And then I met Bobby, and this was around the end of April or so, somewhere in there.
Talk about an odd meeting, too, the way it started.
Yeah. To go over this, me and Bobby's first interaction wasn't exactly pleasant, if you will. We were doing a race. I remember it was the Audi TTs at Monza, and there was an incident.
Oh, absolutely.
There was an incident between me and one of the other guys, and the other guy that the incident was with is another good buddy of ours. I absolutely fucking love the guy because he's a riot.
Yeah.
So there was an incident between the two of us, and Bobby didn't see the incident clearly, and he had to make a snap decision on what basically the ruling was in that. Because for those of you guys that don't know how it works, at Race Department, those of us that organize the races, we're essentially like the race stewards at the same time. So we're in the race, we're, stewarding the race, we're organizing everything. You got to wear a lot of hats all at the same time. So he had to make a snap decision, and made the decision, and me being me, I immediately keyed up my microphone and was like, are you fucking kidding me? And that was basically Bobby's introduction to the first sergeant, if you will. And the next day after Bobby had reviewed the incident, he was immediately apologetic and was like, yeah, I called that wrong, and so on. And I didn't think anything of it. Like, in the moment, I was the total asshole, as you would expect. But afterwards, because of what I do here with ArmA, I had completely let it go. Like, I had forgot about it, because you guys know I don't take anything personally. Once it's said and done, it's over with. I don't fucking think about it again. So when he messaged me and was super apologetic about it, I felt like a total dick, because I was like, man, now this guy is kicking himself. I did not mean anything personal by it. It's just me being who I am, and he doesn't understand that, So we ended up sitting down and talking. I believe it was like after the next race, the two of us sat there for a couple hours just bullshitting.
Yeah.
And we realized, oh shit, we have a lot of the same interests. You know, this is actually pretty cool. And that was kind of the, I guess, start of our romantic relationship right then and there. And that is when I fell in love with another man besides Soto and Drum and Hammer.
Yeah, and I'm looking for a new onion ring, by the way.
Yeah. And no, Vertigo, sadly, Soto is not going to be on the podcast tonight. I actually tried to get Soto on here tonight, but he doesn't like you guys enough to make time to be on the podcast. He was like, yeah, fuck those guys. No, he had shit going on.
But let me just say, though, going back to that incident, you know, I didn't really hear Jeremy that much. The one thing I will say is I made a judgment, and it was the wrong judgment, but he had the, what am I trying to say? I guess the respect or whatever, but he obeyed what I did. And then afterwards is where, he had something that he had said in the thread, and it wasn't anything real bad. He just said, it was basically a BS call, and it was my second race to host.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can do as a driver is ruin somebody else's race. You do not want to be that guy. The worst thing you can do is when you're playing the role of God and you make a mistake. You feel horrible because now you might run a guy off that you want racing with you. And so that's what happened, and that's why I felt so bad. It had nothing to do with, but I do take things personal, but it had nothing to do with Jeremy's approach. It had to do with me being a complete goofball and messing up. And since then, I don't think I've made another judgment call in the race. The only thing I say is, if you're not sure, let him by, or you're going to get to meet the banhammer.
Right. And for anyone that hasn't watched my Aceto streams, when we're racing in club races, when we're actually doing the race, not when we're out practicing, because you guys see me and Bobby play bumper cars a lot when we're out practicing.
A lot.
But when we're actually in the race, if you hit someone and put them at a disadvantage in the race at any point in time, then you have to pull over and let them make up that position that you just got from them. That's like the big main rule at race department, and that's what helps, I guess, stop the pub server fucking antics, if you will. So that's like the main thing we have to look out for as race organizers. But to go back to how we got to that point of me also being a race organizer, after me and Bobby had sat down and bullshit for a while, I had brought up the unit as, it's obviously a big part of my life. It's a huge part of my life at this point. And we got talking about that, and he was very interested in hearing about it. And I got into some of the kind of organizational aspects of the unit and how we make this work with all these people. And I guess for whatever reason, hearing that kind of gave him the idea that I would make a good staff member for race department.
Absolutely.
Why, I'm still not sure, because I promise you guys,
it's your sweet personality.
Yeah, they did not know what the fuck hit them when they gave me a staff badge.
No, but it's been a good thing for race department.
Yeah,
I think we're good cop and bad cop, and we're getting things done.
Good cop and worst cop. So Bobby had sent me a message and said, hey man, have you ever thought about maybe being a staff member at race department? And at this point, I had only been at race department for maybe a month, maybe a little bit longer than a month.
Get them when they're young.
Yeah, exactly. Get them before they know what the fuck they're doing. So he shot me that message, and I was kind of taken back by it, because I was like, oh, shit, I'm like the newest guy here. I don't know anything, that I'm doing as far as racing or anything like that. And I'm sure as shit.
Fire.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I wasn't knowledgeable enough really in the game to be able to tell people how to do things, because as most of you guys know, anytime you're in an authoritative position, not only do you need to be able to set the stuff up and make sure things go off without a hitch, but you also need to be able to help people with problems. If, you know, if they got an issue doing whatever the fuck it is, they look to you to be able to help solve that issue. And I didn't really have that know-how at the time. Luckily, Bobby was more than willing to hold my hand and walk me through all of it so that I did understand it within a reasonable amount of time. And I was able to start organizing races. And once I started organizing races and really started getting to know the guys better, we started building the US club, as we call it, because there's two separate clubs within the race department, essentially. There's the EU club and there's the US club. And for a long time, the US club was kind of a dying breed. Nobody really raced at the US times because the majority of race department is based around European members as far as the racers go. And the US club was pretty much dead, and Bobby started reviving it and then brought me on board, and things kind of started taking off better. But we still have to rely on European guys to come into the races and kind of fill out our grids. But we're extremely lucky in the fact that we have a really good group of European guys that come in pretty much every single race with us, and they're, you know, kind of our set group of guys. And I know it was you, Bobby, and I don't know when, but we ended up kind of, I guess, coining that crew as the Hooligans. And I don't even know when the hell that was, but I know it was fairly early on that you kind of threw that out there, and it just kind of stuck. It just started taking over that, you know, those of us that race in the US club are the Hooligan crew.
Yeah, because we're willing, you know, that was the thing is, you and I have both raced in both sections, the US and the European races. The European guys are extremely quick. A lot of them are very witty, very funny, but they tend to be a little bit more serious about their racing. And the US side had been about cutting up and shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why Jeremy and I, you know, when we do this thing, whenever he's streaming and I'm willing to go out and be devoured alive from behind, that's the whole thing, you know, and it makes it fun. And so there's times that we just gather up in a pack and run like a bunch of rabid dogs together because that's what we enjoy doing. And I said something one night about, I said, you know, I said, we're just a bunch of hooligans. Of course, I like Motley Crue, so every now and then I throw the video in there, you know, Hooligans Holiday. And that's what we do, and it did. It stuck. But that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, and we, as you mentioned, me and Bobby are two of the kind of, I guess, rare breed, if you will, that'll hop in and kind of swim with the sharks, as we call the Europeans, because those guys are just, they're insanely fast. I mean, they're the definition of aliens.
Yeah.
And to hop into the deep end with those guys, it's intimidating. I mean, it's genuinely intimidating. And, you know, to go from our kind of our style, where when we're even sometimes in the race, we're talking and bullshitting with each other and, you know, talking smack to each other, depending upon how serious the race is.
Right.
But especially during practice, you know, we're bullshitting, making jokes and stuff like that. The European side isn't really doing that because they're so much more competitive. Everybody is focusing. And it just puts that much more pressure on you. And not to say that's not fun, because obviously me and Bobby still race
We love it.
in the European club. So, you know, it's still very fun. It's just, it's a big difference from what we normally do. And that's perfectly fine. I like it. But I love what we do in the US club because it gives us more of that social aspect and, you know, lets us have fun and bullshit with each other. And there's been a lot of guys, even on the European side, that have said, you know, that they would love to race with us more in the US club because they have so much fun with us, you know, telling jokes and stuff like that. But it's just too late for them being in Europe. But that, to me, is what kind of defines the US club at Race Department, is that we have a lot of fun when we do our races. Because, I mean, you guys know from even watching my ArmA streams, we'll be in the middle of a firefight, and I'm still cracking a joke at somebody. You know, we can be heading into contact, and if fucking, you know, if Richie is next to me, I'm making a joke about his big black dick. I don't care. You have to find that moment to kind of relieve that stress. You know, you can't you can't just stay 100% focused the entire time, because you're gonna kill yourself, man.
My mind runs the same way yours does, man. If I'm not making a bad joke, I'm thinking of another bad joke that I'm gonna be saying and embarrassing myself. Well, but you know, I love watching. You know why I like watching your streams. You know, even after our races, it's like, you know, why would you go back and watch Jeremy's streams? Well, one, I get to see how much better of a driver you are. I get to see the lines you take versus mine. And two, I love watching the interaction that you have there with the guys in chat. And it amazes me that you can do that, crack wise with us, and still finish where you finish. And I mean, you know, like Tinkata saying here, playing video games and listening to this is actually kind of fun. Well, see, that's what, when Jeremy introduced me to the ArmA stuff, that's what I do. I'll just throw up a video of one of the missions and I'll watch it. And it's almost like watching a war movie over here on the side while I'm doing my RD stuff. You know, I can tell when, you know, when it's going to get hot, time to go watch.
Yeah, it usually involves a bunch of me cursing, and Bobby's like, oh, I better pay attention.
Yeah, somebody's going to die. It's either going to be on the other side or somebody in the unit.
Yeah.
But it's teamwork too. You know, what we do at race department, what Jeremy and I do anyway, is truly teamwork. And our guys that he's talking about, our core, it's teamwork too. They make us better. We help them. They make us better. And I think that's what's appealing to me about you guys with your ArmA unit is I've always been about teamwork and team. It's very important to me in anything that I do. So I love what you guys do with that.
Well, and you know, talking about the teamwork and stuff, and this is something that we did this week, is any of you guys that watch, I streamed kind of one of our practice sessions, and it was these cars, the GT4s at Zandvoort, to show you guys kind of the work that goes into one of the races. You know, me and Bobby oftentimes will get together, you know, damn near every night, and we'll sit down for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 hours and run lap after lap after lap, just fine-tuning our setup and getting it 100% perfect. And that's, you know, one of the things I was saying, I think it was Monday, I did that stream. Yeah, it was Monday. It's one of the things I was saying in there is, like, you guys only got like a little snippet of how much work we actually put into building the setup and stuff. And that's not to say, you know, you have to do that much work to be able to race. You don't, not at all. You can go in there with a baseline setup and be able to do well, if you got some skill and some patience. But we have a lot of fun driving, especially together. So, you know, we're like, hell with it. Let's go hop in the server, put in a bunch of practice laps, see what we can do as far as a setup. And, you know, Bobby acts as kind of my race engineer, if you will, oftentimes, where, because I still don't know all that much about setting up a car and how to make it do different things. So we'll be practicing and I'll tell Bobby, hey, it's pushing mid-corner. What do I need to do? And I'll say, all right, well, take this down 2 clicks and move this up 2 clicks and go out and do a couple laps. I'm going to ride with you, see what it does. And that's where, you know, the two of us kind of act as a team together, to not only have a fun race, but, you know, to try and get a decent result for both of us. Even though it seems like as of late, it's either you are doing great or I'm doing great. We can't, like, fucking get together for some reason. It's just one or the other. It's, all right, you're going to have a great race and you're going to fucking die in a fiery ball of smoke, or you're going to have a great race and the other one's going to die.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
But, you know, with race department, we do damn near every single night we do club races. You know, between the EU club and the US club, there is a club race every night with the exception of Saturday right now. Uh, so there's tons of racing constantly going on, and that's just for Assetto. There's all of the other sims as well, you know, R Factor 2, R Factor 1, uh, Race Room, Automobilista, all of that. So when we do the club races, this is just one portion of race department that you're seeing. This is just the Assetto Corsa Club. And I wish I could do more of the clubs. I personally really like Race Room as well as R Factor 2. I don't have time to race in all of them. And as I'm sure you guys have noticed, I've been streaming a lot over the last week. I've actually got stuff scheduled every single day. So it'll be 7 days this week that I'll be streaming. I'm pretty goddamn busy.
Look, speaking of hooligans, look who just showed up.
Oh, there's that Joel Koosman guy, the flying Finn himself.
Yeah.
Those of you on YouTube, Mr. Joel Koosman is one of the hooligans and is an absolute genius when it comes to setting up cars and is incredibly goddamn fast. But he's fast going sideways at 1,000,000 miles an hour with his hair on fire. So he's one of those that will get in there and kind of cut up with us. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about as far as race department, and that's why I brought up, you know, the practice session and setting up cars and stuff like that. Is, you know, as I said, me and Bobby spend a lot of time in practice and setting up our cars and stuff like that. And guys may find that kind of weird because we're actually racing against each other. I mean, we're not actually on a team where we're doing driver swaps and stuff like that. We're racing against each other. But we both have that mentality, as well as a lot of the guys we race with, like Joel and Tariq and Alan and Andrew and all those guys and Bud. We all have that mentality of, you know, while we may be talking shit to each other in the moment, you know, we all want to see each other do well.
Sure.
We're all happy if, you know, one of our friends wins a race. Like Sunday, we did that GT3 race at Laguna, and I was in second place pretty much the entire race, and Tariq just fucking annihilated me. I mean, he finished like 30 some seconds ahead of me, and that was great. Like, it's great to see Tariq be able to go in there and take first place in a race with those guys, especially being an hour-long race. You know, it's a good feeling to see one of your buddies do that well. And that's kind of the mentality that we have, and that's why we share setups with each other. Like, we don't keep that shit secretly guarded. It's not the fucking KFC, you know, formula.
Secret recipe.
Yeah, it's just, we're in there to have fun. That's the biggest part for us. So being able to help our buddy out and take 2-3 seconds off his lap time, shit, yeah, that just makes for closer, better racing for us, you know.
Puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Bobby, is, you know, we race a lot of different cars in race department, especially in our club. Anybody that's watched my streams, you guys know my love is for tin tops. I love GT cars. GT2, GT3, GT4. I love driving those cars. Bobby here is a masochist and likes driving F1 cars. What in the name of all that is holy draws you to those ungodly fucking death machines?
Well, again, it goes back, I guess, to childhood is probably the biggest thing, you know, just always loving Formula One, knowing that you're never going to get a chance, but there's something about driving with that much downforce, and when you go into a corner, it's unnatural to keep your foot pinned or carry more speed through it than you do with the tin tops. You know, with the tin tops, you get used to the way you drive it. Well, Formula One is completely opposite, yet it's still kind of the same. What it is, though, is you have to get used to, okay, I have to go through this corner carrying more speed so I can get the downforce so the car sticks. But you can go fast enough to where you exceed that limit. And for me, you know, I spent so many years. Jeff Crammon was a great developer and sim maker, and he made Grand Prix 2, 3, and 4. And those are the ones I spent a lot of time in hot lapping and racing the AI. But it, with Formula One, you go out and it just you can be more consistent in a Formula One car, a modern Formula One car. The old ones, not so much, because they're a handful, as you guys saw the other day in the Lotus 98T around Brands Hatch. You know, Jeremy's got the quickest hands in the world, and I thought he did a fantastic job driving that thing, because when the turbo comes in on those things, all it wants to do is just blow the rear tires off of it. So
Yeah, as I said, because that car has about 400 fucking foot-pounds more torque than what it actually needs.
Yeah, and so, you know, I do think that if you would give yourself some time and patience, that you would see what it is that we like about it. You know, me and Tarek and Joel, we just love Formula One. I mean, but Joel, you know, but all three, what you three guys have over me is reactions are so freaking quick that you guys can do things with cars that I just can't do. Now, I can drive a line and I can try to hit breaking points and I can sometimes do okay in a race, but the constant saving of the car like you guys do, it blows my mind. And that's why all three of you too can run your brake bias so far back. And guys, brake bias to me, you've all heard about Russian roulette. That's what you're playing with the brake bias. When you start setting it back and you go into a corner, if you have it too far back and you brake a little bit too late as you're turning in, the rear end is going to want to step out on you and get sideways. And that's why you guys see Jeremy fighting his steering wheel all the time. It makes the car rotate, but if you can catch it, that's fine. But
Yeah,
it will
you're
also bite you
basically
in the butt.
Yeah, you're basically riding on a knife's edge. The farther back you put your brake bias. But the farther back you put your brake bias, the quicker you can bring the car to a stop, essentially, is the way that works. Now, to give you an idea, most road cars that you're going to be driving, most passenger vehicles, are usually about 72, 74% forward biased. So that's why every time you go to stop with your car, especially if you get on the brakes hard, it throws you way forward, is because it's almost all the work is being done by your front brakes. Now in a race car, the reason you don't want that, one, you don't want all that weight transfer going forward, especially in a front-engined car, because it's putting that much more strain on the front tires. But it's also a higher likelihood that you're going to lock up those front tires. And if you lock up the front tires, then you're sliding. You've lost all traction. You're going to blow right past the corner. So the farther back you can move that brake bias, now the back tires are also helping stop. It's not just the fronts. So instead of just basically putting down, a plow in front of your car, now you're essentially throwing an anchor out behind it. And it kind of helps you stop quicker. But the downside is, as Bobby said, if you brake too late and get on them too hard, now those back tires are going to try and lock up. And when those back tires lock up and start to skid, that's when the car will loop around on you. And if you're quick enough and you do it right, that can almost be a benefit to you. When you come into a super tight corner, like a hairpin, you can use those back tires locking up to actually help rotate your car around a little bit. Now, and when I say lock those back tires up, I don't mean like watching someone in Initial D pull the fucking handbrake and completely lock the tires up. It's not that drastic. It's just a millisecond. Those back tires lock up and gives you a tiny bit of rotation and helps you get into the corner that much faster. Because obviously, corners are where time is made up. Anybody can go fast in a straight line, just hold their foot down. Getting into a corner quickly and out of it quickly, that's where all the time is made. They say slow in, fast out. That's great. But if you can go fast in, fast out, that's better. So that's why majority of the time you'll see, guys that are really fast, especially in braking zones, it's because they have their brake bias a lot farther back than what you would expect. And also, a lot of times it's because they have very little ABS or they have absolutely no ABS, which I have still yet to fucking master.
Well,
And
you're new to this.
well, and that's one of the things that you guys will notice, especially lately after I got these new pedals. I'm able to brake even later than what I used to, and
So he hits me
obviously,
even more is
yeah,
where he's going
exactly.
with this.
Uh, so obviously, you want to get into the corner as fast as you can and get out of the corner as fast as you can. So the later you can brake, generally the better. So now I have a brake pedal that has an actual load cell. So the way most pedals are, like lower end pedals, they work basically by distance. So how far you're pressing down on the pedal, or how far you're moving that arm of the pedal. It's not based upon how much pressure you're putting on it, like what a real car is. So when you have a load cell, that's what that's simulating. Is it's based on the amount of pressure that you're putting on the pedal, not the distance that you're making the arm move. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it makes it more natural feeling. So when you go into a braking zone, you're not relying on necessarily muscle memory as to how far you need to move your foot. It's how hard you need to push on it, which is much more natural feeling because that's what you do in a real car. So the later you can brake, again, generally going to be better for you. Now, any of you guys that have watched my streams quite a bit, especially lately, uh, know that I'm able to brake pretty late, quite a bit later than what Bobby usually is. And one part of that is because I'm able to run that brake bias so much farther back
Correct.
than what Bobby does. So I'm able to brake later because I can bring the car to a stop earlier. But the thing that has really helped is now I have this VR headset. And again, as I've said in a previous stream, I can't speak highly enough of VR when it comes to driving sims. It completely transforms the game because it gives you genuine depth perception, which you can't get on a monitor. In VR, you can have real depth perception where you can see exactly how far you are from someone. And I mean, I can follow behind someone's car. I can basically push their car along the road without both of us dying in a ball of fire because I can see exactly how far they are. That also helps with braking zones and being able to follow someone into a braking zone, hitting your braking markers right, and just all together helps driving. And as I said at the start of the podcast, Bobby recently got a taste of it. And
Oh,
what are your
hmm.
thoughts on VR?
Everybody's seen Star Wars, I'm sure. You've heard of, you heard, Luke Skywalker used the Force, Luke. And then there's the dark side. It's the dark side of the Force. Once you do it, oh, it's so evil what you can do to people because now, like he's saying, when the depth comes into it, I mean, like the back of my car, I've got a bumper sticker on it. Actually, I don't. It's on the back of Jeremy's car. It says War Games Inc. But he can follow me so close. eh, I mean, it's unbelievable. So for me, when I did it at first, it took I don't know, maybe a couple hours to get used to, but then it was like, oh my goodness. Because when you were telling me what a difference it made, and I was obviously seeing the difference in our lap times because all of a sudden now you're a second faster than me. And and when you were saying that, I thought, he's just being nice. He's just getting better. Uh, but he was being honest with me. It makes a difference. And so if you want to drive and you want to drive really well, uh, you can do it on a flat screen. You can do it with triple screens. But this is unlike anything I've ever done. This to me is like going from a controller to a steering wheel and pedals. That's what you're doing with your eyes. When you go from a flat screen to the 3D look, now you're not looking at a corner, you're looking into a corner. It's so much easier. And the brake zones, it's just natural. When you get into it, you sense the distance and you're like, just like in real life, if you're driving your car down the road and you're coming up and you see a stop sign coming up, you know about when to brake just based on that depth perception. That's what it gives you. So it's something that if you can afford to do it, I would recommend doing it because it's going to help you become a better driver. Not going to make you godlike. It's not going to make you an alien.
Yeah.
That is you have to have the reactions and the skills like the guys I was mentioning earlier, but then you have to practice them and hone them. And so anything you do competitively, you want to have every advantage that you can over the other guy. That's not cheating, that's life.
Yeah. And it's the thing that gets me about VR is, obviously CES or whatever is going on right now. Vive just announced their new headset that they're going to be doing with higher resolution and wireless and all of that good stuff. And we know Oculus is going to follow them up and probably do pretty much the same shit. So prices are going to start dropping on VR. I do believe it's going to be more and more common. I mean, it's already getting more common at race department. It's like damn near every week one of the guys is saying, "Oh yeah, I just got my Rift or I just got my Vive," and we're like, "Oh fuck, here's another one." And I ended up being one of those now. But as it gets more common, we've both seen how much it can improve driving. Not necessarily ability, but it allows you to, I guess, more so. Not really display your natural ability, but it allows you to use your natural ability more so, I guess. And we've both seen that. So the thing is, as it becomes more common, the guys that are already fast, like insanely fast on, just like a single monitor and stuff,
Yeah.
I have a very hard time believing that any of them would not improve their speed with VR. Like
Well,
I don't know how they couldn't improve their speed with VR.
well, it's just like the Flying Finn. He just stated his opinion about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And yeah.
but the VR, for me, like last night when my throttle was messing up on me, I was
Mhm.
still a second faster last night wearing that headset. I was able to run in the 46s than I had done previously on a flat screen with full throttle.
Yeah.
So now, I didn't have full throttle last night and running faster lap times. So you have to ask yourself, what made the difference? It's not that I'm that much better. It's that I had another tool in my bag to help me be as good as I can be.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying as far as, it doesn't increase your skill at all. It just allows you to use the skill that you already have better. And that's the big thing for me with VR. And, now, as I've said a couple times in the streams, I have multiple monitors and stuff, but I use them now for, for streaming and stuff like that. Like, you guys, most of you guys know, you've seen my setup before. My monitors, all of them right now, are completely full of stuff because I'm live. And when I was racing with just the monitors, I would be racing on only a single monitor because I was streaming it. But I've raced on triple monitors, and that's one of the reasons that I got multiple monitors in the first place, was to race on. And if I wasn't using all of my monitors for stuff while I was streaming, if I had only got them for racing, after trying VR, I would feel like a total dumbass now. Because it's pretty much the same price. In fact, it's a little bit. I paid less for my VR headset than I paid for all of my monitors. But it's to the point now where it's pretty much cost effective in comparison to running trip monitors to run VR instead. And it's such a drastic difference from
Yeah.
running VR to monitors. Like it can't even be compared. And there is no way I could ever go back to using a monitor for racing from VR.
Yeah, the
No
only
way.
word of caution I would give the guys about, running out and buying a VR headset would be you have to have the horsepower to run it. So
Yeah.
so your box has got to be like I run an i5 quad core. It's a K series, and when it came out, it was faster than the i7s, and it still stands up to it today. And I've got a 1050 Ti. You don't have to have a 1070 or 1080 but you have to have the horsepower to be able to run it, to enjoy it. And so don't go buying one saying, because what we're talking about, and then say, well, wish I would have known. So you have been forewarned.
Yeah.
If you don't have the video card and you don't have the processor, it will not do you any good. It will just piss you off, and you will hate us the rest of your life. We're
Yeah.
making you spend $300, $400 on something that you really didn't need. But for me, like, I sit in front of a 42-inch plasma. If it were to go out, I know what I'm going to get.
Right, because
Plain and simple.
it'd be the same price.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, and
I've got a
that's
32-inch downstairs that I can hook up for a second monitor, and I've got what I want, which is my headset for racing. Then I've got my monitor, that I have downstairs. I have an extra TV that was hooked up that it's just sitting there collecting dust, and I could put it to good use. So that's what I would do, because I can't go to a smaller monitor racing. And really, I'm really dreading Friday night and Sunday racing you guys on a flat screen.
right, because
Because,
now you're not gonna have VR, because
well,
unfortunately that was your family member's VR headset that you were using.
it's kind of like the first time you're with a girl. I mean, when you're really with her, once you get a little bit of that, you're ruined.
Yeah,
You
you're like,
are
well,
ruined.
I'm
It's
done
like,
for.
I got to get me some more of that.
And that, as you mentioned, the making sure that your rig can run VR in the first place, obviously very important. Actually, one of the guys that races with us, we were talking with him about it last night. Um, and as Tenkata said, there's programs out there that'll tell you if your system is strong enough to run VR.
Yeah.
And I myself, I've been incredibly lucky that I have the system that I have. I haven't been lucky enough that like any of the parts are fucking sponsored, like some of the big streamers and shit. But
Right.
I have a very nice system, and I'm aware of that. And I've been very lucky that I'm able to have what I have, and I could, just drop that money on a VR headset and know that my shit's gonna be able to run it. And I always joke that when I buy stuff like that, it's a work expense for me. And really, when it all boils down to it, this is, I guess, the one vice that I have aside from cigarettes and coffee. Uh, this is my one hobby aside from the bike, but that's done and paid for. So
Right.
this is what I get to do, and this is what I get to spend my money on, aside from fucking bills and so on, because fucking adulting sucks. So, if you're on the fence about VR, definitely first and foremost, make sure your system will run it. And don't, unless you plan on solely running VR games, don't go out and do shit just based around VR. And that's what I was telling the guy we were talking to last night. If the video card you have right now is good enough to run most games, but your CPU fucking sucks, then don't worry about a VR headset. Get yourself a CPU. Get yourself to that point where you don't have to worry about upgrading for a few years, and then you can worry about VR, because unless it's something you're going to be in for hours every time you game, then it's not really worth it to drop money that could be used on other things. At least that's my opinion on it. I mean, my PC is built around ArmA. That's what I built it for, because that's my primary game. And so to go and grab a VR headset, that's great. I use it for Assetto, which obviously I play a lot of. I've been playing even more of it now that I have a VR headset. But I'm still never gonna base all of my stuff around Assetto. That's not my game. While I love it, while I love being at race department and racing and everything,
Yeah.
that's kind of my hobby, if you will. As I was saying the other night in the stream, racing is my hobby, and that's why I'm perfectly okay with when I stream my races. There's sometimes 10, maybe 15 guys watching. I'm perfectly fine with that. Like I'm good with it not being as popular because that's my hobby. That's what I do for fun. ArmA for me, that's my job. Like when I stream ArmA, that's me going to work. Uh, so that's what my stuff is always going to be based around. Um, but to be able to buy that VR headset and get into Assetto and just plain have fun, oh god, it is so worth that $400.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the same way you are. If I had to pick one thing and I could only have one thing, it'd be a monitor because I do so much other than driving.
Right.
You know, driving, at the end of the day, driving is very little of my time on the computer. But with the headset, I can tell you that the enjoyment I get from using it within the game, and I can't wait to try a flying sim. Running canyons, man, it's going to be incredible with the headset on. But I'm like you, you know, you can't beat a monitor. And guys, you do not have to have VR to be fast because Joel doesn't have it, Tarek doesn't have it. They just use monitors, and they are insanely quick. So it can be done. All we're talking about is, you know, because Jeremy and I are pretty new to online racing and everything. What it did for us basically overnight. It made that much of a difference. But for me, just the experience of seeing that car in front of me and to the side, like when you and I were running close together,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I literally feel like I'm in a car. It's I can't describe it any better than that. When I sat down in front of my steering wheel, we can adjust our screens, guys, to where, you know, the steering wheel sits in front of us and lines us up where we can sit and look down the track. Well, when I put the VR headset on for the first time, my steering wheel was off on the screen, or in the headset. It was off to the right. So I felt like I was sitting at an angle
Right, you felt
in
like
my
you're
seat.
all cockeyed in the car.
It was playing mind games with me. And so you have to get that relationship set up right. And when you do, you know, I could reach up and is looking at the steering wheel on the screen, or in the VR headset, my hands matched. And now all of a sudden, you know, because I never used driver arms or any of that, now I want it because I can see
Right.
my, you know, because it feels like it.
And that's I actually had the other night when I was streaming. I think we were in practice or something. My brother had come in here, you know, and I had my headset on, and he had set a monster down here on my desk, and I heard it touch my desk, and I just reached out and grabbed it, and he was like, "How in the fuck do you even see anything in that thing?" I was like, "I can't." And he was like, "How did you know it was there?" I was like, "Dude, I spend how many
Sensory
hours a
perception.
day? Well, I spend how many hours a fucking day at my desk? Like, I know where everything is at. I can close my eyes and find anything on my desk."
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those like, yeah, I'm blind, but still, you know, I work at my desk every day, so I know where everything's at.
Yeah, some
Um,
people have a better sense of a sense of awareness than others. Like some people
oh,
that, you know, they're
believe me,
all the time going to be reaching for something and knocking it over.
with how much I play ArmA, believe me, situational awareness is one thing that I fucking bitch at guys about all the time. As you know from watching my stream.
No, you never raise your voice. You never say anything. It's always good job, good
Yeah,
job, good
it's
job.
rainbows and fucking kittens.
Yeah,
Uh,
unicorns and magic pixie dust.
yeah, and you know, you had mentioned flight sims with VR, and I've had a couple guys ask me about that, like if I'm into flight sims and stuff. Um, and you know, just to put it out there again, you know, I'm not solely because of the fact that I I have poor self-control when it comes to stuff like that. So if I were to get into, you know, DCS, then I would buy the A10 in DCS, and then I would need a flight stick. And if I'm gonna get a flight stick, then I'm gonna go get the fucking HOTAS Warthog, and you know that's a $500 flight stick. But you know, for me, if you're gonna do a job, then fucking do it right, because moderation is for cowards. So I would have to go out and get that, because that's what's required to do the fucking job right. So I'm not into fucking flight sims, unfortunately. I would love to, because I love planes. Despite me, always being an infantry guy in ArmA. Any of you guys have watched me fucking gush about the A-10 during OSA, you know how much I love that airframe. But I can't get into it. So to get back to, sim racing and what we do at Race Department and stuff, for you, what's kind of the, this being a new year, what's the, I guess, big thing you're looking to do in sim racing through 2018? What's kind of the one thing you're like, yeah, I really want to accomplish this in 2018?
Well, the one thing I'm excited about is that you actually agreed to join up with me and start a race team. And so you and I can now compete in, say, R Factor 2 or whatever the sim's going to be, where we do some real endurance racing and we have to do the driver swaps and stuff like that. I'm really looking forward to that, and I would like for us to be able to finish, in the top 15, and that's really a lofty goal when you watch how fast some of those guys are. But
Yeah.
you have to have goals. So that's what I'm looking to do, and it's just as a driver of a set of course. Of course, I would like to be finishing on the podium more. I'm starting to get a taste of it, and Bobby likes.
Yeah.
Old Bobby likes. It feeds his ego a little bit. I try not to have an ego, but we all have a little bit of it. All of us that are what I consider to be alpha males. It doesn't mean you're the biggest, baddest dude in the room, but it does mean I'm not backing down. And so when you get a taste of it, you want more.
Yeah, and you mentioned, doing a race team, and that's something that me and Bobby have been talking about for quite a while now. To do a race team together and do some legit endurance racing, because that's another one of our shared interests is, true endurance racing, 6 to 24 hours. And the downside of it is we're old and our bodies can't really handle it all that great.
Yep.
So, I've made the joke multiple times that, if we do a race team, we have to have a couple of younger guys, because me and Bobby can only do stints of about an hour each before our knees are like, yeah, fuck off, we're not driving anymore. So, we'll see where that goes. Hopefully we're able to get that done, and hopefully you guys will be able to, check those out. I granted don't expect anyone to watch a fucking 24-hour stream, but be able to stop in and say hey when you can, and laugh at us old guys mowing the lawn. And that's why I actually said that our race team should be called Grumpier Old Men.
Yeah.
I'll be the grumpy one. And
and I'll be the older one.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's definitely something I'm looking forward to for racing this year. In fact, that's probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, is to be able to do some real endurance racing with a team, because that, to me, I guess, being the for lack of a better term, the social butterfly, I like the team aspect of it, and the sense of, it's not just you out there. It's just you out there when you're in the car, but when you do that driver swap, now it's on your buddy to get the job done for the next hour, 2 hours, whatever. And the sense of accomplishment after not necessarily winning a race or even podium or even fucking top 10, just finishing an endurance race is huge. To be able to say that you finished a 12-hour race, that your team finished a 12-hour race, that's a huge accomplishment. And,
Absolutely.
so that's definitely something I'm looking forward to this year, as far as the racing goes. And also, continuing to grow Race Department. And there's a lot of really cool things coming up for Race Department that obviously I can't really talk about. But if you guys have any interest whatsoever, not just in like sim racing, but just in motorsports in general, go check out Race Department. Go check out the website and the forums and stuff. There's pretty much daily news reports that are put up there, not just about video games, but also about real world motorsports. One of the writers there, Paul Jeffrey, he does some amazing articles, like very, very well written articles, and has also done like interviews and stuff like that on camera and stuff. So those guys really have something special there at Race Department, and knowing the plans that are coming up over the next year, I can't wait to see what is going to happen in 2018 with Race Department. And to answer the question, do I think that they'll add VR to Star Citizen? I think they'll plan to. Whether they ever actually do, maybe, because by time Star Citizen finally gets to come out, we'll probably have VR in every living room in America. So we'll see. But that covers kind of the racing side of things, if you will. So again, it's something that I love doing as a hobby, and I understand it's not that popular. But hopefully you guys can at least understand why I do a lot of racing and why I'm not just only streaming ArmA all the time. Because to do ArmA the way that we do ArmA, it's pretty draining. And it's something that you can't do all the fucking time. And that's kind of the next thing I want to get into, as we've brought it up a couple of times, obviously. And that is that Mr. Pennington here is going to be joining us in ArmA. And
it's a scary thought, guys. It's daunting is what it is. It's like the level of professionalism that I see you guys display and do. Of course I want to meet that standard, so it's a little bit intimidating.
And that's, I've had a couple of guys that are, that came into the unit after, I guess, meeting me, if you will, or getting to know me. And like AA Ron, who's in chat right now, AA Ron followed us for years. And I finally twisted his fucking arm enough to finally join and told him to quit being a bitch. And I've basically done the same thing to Cope, Copenhagen guy, who a lot of you guys know from the stream. And now I've done
streams.
Yeah.
And, like I know Vert.
Yeah, exactly. And now I've done the same thing to Bobby and said, all right, motherfucker, it's time. Because you've mentioned how many times, you've mentioned multiple times that you watch the streams and that you enjoy it and stuff like that. And we've had a lot of conversations about, military and things along those lines. So finally, I had enough of talking about it and said, all right, now's the time. So get the shit installed and let's get this going.
So this dickhead that everybody sees, he's not really. He's a sweet guy. He won't let you know it.
Shut the fuck up! You're gonna ruin my street cred, dickhead.
So he's inviting me to be a friend on Steam. Next thing I know, I've got ArmA 3, and I'm like, Dick, you're not supposed to do this. And now I gotta step it up.
Yeah, I did one of those AA Ron moves and just didn't say anything and just sent him a copy of ArmA 3 with Apex and said, there you go, now you have everything you need, you don't have an excuse anymore.
Well, you spend so much time with me, and serious about this, you spend so much time with me at race departments, who knows if you need a break from me or what. And so, yeah, ArmA was always very interesting to me. But I didn't want to invite myself, and I didn't want you to feel obligated to ask me to do it simply because I asked you to help me with race department. But like I say, apparently we've got a bond there. We both love so many of the same things. We both feel the same way about country and flag and our servicemen. And I think it's going to be something that I will really enjoy doing and getting to know some of the guys.
Right, and it's yeah, exactly. Aaron doesn't do that. It's one of those where you guys know, you guys that watch the stream, especially those of you that aren't in the unit, kind of know how it works as far as when we flip that switch and kind of turn it on, if you will. To quote fucking Brian Bosworth in Stone Cold, which is probably a movie way too old for most all of you, but it was awesome. Go watch it.
Yep.
Anyways, to when I do the unit stuff and I kind of, I guess, put on that first sergeant hat, I'm not necessarily a different person. I just kind of take that personality and turn it up to 11. And Bobby's seen that in the streams, but he hasn't really experienced that first person yet. So, at least I myself, I'm interested to see how how like OSUT's gonna go if he braves my class or if he's gonna try and go into class Bravo to get away from me. Uh, so it and it's definitely one of those things, because I've had somebody ask before, is it weird to have friends come into the unit and then have to be like their superior? And for me, it's not, because, again, for me, it's playing a role. I'm not actually that person. I'm flipping a switch and becoming that person. And as soon as that switch is turned off, it's not there anymore. So it's not one of those, like, we could be in the middle of a class and I could, be just ripping into your ass, calling you a total fucking retard. As soon as that class is over, it's, hey, what's up, Bobby? How's it going? And
Yeah.
I think that throws a lot of people off who are outside the unit, or that, since I've started streaming, it's helped a lot, because when I'm able to talk to you guys in chat and, bullshit directly with you, guys have mentioned before, it's like I have split personalities, because you kind of have to. But for a lot of people just looking at it from the outside, you'll oftentimes get the people, like, especially in drums comment sections, that are like, dude, you're a total fucking asshole and this and that. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what the job requires. And my favorite ones are always like, fucking officers don't talk like that. And it's like, yeah, well, you haven't served a fucking day in your life, have you? Because I've heard more foul-mouthed, nasty shit come out of a military officer than you could ever fucking believe. But I think a lot of times guys have a hard time with that, like being able to differentiate when, kind of when you're at work and when you're not,
Yeah.
if you will. But you're able to, simply because of the fact that you already know going into it, that's how it works. We've talked about it so much, and you've watched the streams and watched me interact with the stream, that going into it that I'm a different person when I'm training than what I am just hanging out bullshitting.
Yeah, and I guess one of the advantages I do have coming into this would be, playing ball, because I was decent, and when a coach is on you, he's not on you to be on you. He's trying to get the best out of you. And
Right.
everybody has a different style of going about doing that. Your style might be, it is the way yours is. Another guy might be a lot softer with his tone, and it's just different styles. And so, as a player or as a soldier or even in the business world, you have to learn to adapt, and you you have to get used to their styles. Otherwise, you're going to walk through life being butthurt all the time,
Yeah.
and there's no point in it, because when you realize somebody's trying to be helpful, even though it hurts, at the end of the day, you can appreciate it. If you have somebody that's not being helpful, that just wants to criticize for criticism's sake, and they don't know what they're doing, well, they suck as a leader, and usually those leaders don't last very long. So,
Right.
I do think I have that. I won't say advantage, but I do have that experience to where, I understand coming into it, and like what you and I talked about, uh, you know, just like what we do with the driving. Yes, it's fun and everything, but we also want to be decent at it. When you guys are in ArmA, you know, when you act like, when you don't take any professionalism into what you're doing, you wind up getting your unit killed. That should bother you. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not real body bags, but when you play the part, you have to put yourself, if you want to do it seriously, you have to put yourself in that position and say, this is real life stuff here. Oh no, I just got Jeremy shot. Why? Because I wasn't doing my job.
No, majority of the time I get myself shot because I'm tired of fucking waiting on people.
There you go. Go
Um,
rampage it up a hill.
yeah, and you know you're right. There's definitely different leadership styles all over the place. And as McCoy brings up grooming standards,
Yep.
at least that mustache. Sixta, I the depiction of him, granted the news that broke about him later on obviously was pretty upsetting, but Sixta, he to me is the ideal SNCO. And I know it sounds stupid because he was a total fucking asshole. Everybody hated him. Everybody did. But that one scene where he says, if morale starts to drop, you let me know and I'll rile him up with grooming standards. That gave you the insight into why he was the asshole. He gave those guys something common to gather around, something common to hate, so that, if morale was low, he goes and riles them up, and now all of a sudden they're pissed off at him, and not because they're low on supplies, not because they don't have grease for their Mark 19, whatever the fucking issue may be. Now they're pissed off at Sixta. And it was his job to be the asshole. And I love that. I love that someone's, that guy is willing to, I guess, fall on his sword, if you will, for the betterment of his guys, because he does give a shit. While it doesn't look like he does from the outside, when you get that little peek inside, you realize, oh, he really does care. He's willing to take that fall for everyone else. And I try to do the same thing in a different sense, somewhat. Just more so, it's, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you because if I break you, I don't have time for you. You don't meet my standards. But if you can make it past me, you can survive any fucking ass reaming you're going to get in the unit. But if you break down and fucking, walk away because I yelled at you, good. I don't have fucking time for you to be here. Get the fuck out now. And that's the mentality I've kind of always had when it comes to ArmA, because like Bobby said, not so much that it's real body bags, and that even that you have to think of it as real body bags. Myself, I think of it as time. People are sacrificing their free time to do this with you. And to me, that's exactly it. They're giving me their free time so that I can do something that I love. So if I let them down by allowing some fucking asshat through OSET who's a total fucking moron and makes their night ruined, then that's my fault. I fucked up their free time. So that's why I tend to be so goddamn hard on guys. And, again, different leadership styles, and some people may not agree with it and think, you shouldn't do it that way and you're taking it too seriously and stuff. And that's fine. But it works, at least
Well,
for
they
me
fit
and
in
what
like a
I've
square
seen.
peg in a round hole, and that's why they don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And
You come and you fit the puzzle does not fit you.
yeah, exactly. It's, and I've said that to guys usually every day 4 of OSUT. Whoever's graduating, I'll tell them, who here thinks they're going to be a leader within this unit, and tell them to stand up. And I kind of go on this little spiel about leadership, and I'm not going to go through all of it because that's for guys that graduate OSUT. But long short of it is, I tell them, if you think you're going to be a leader here, you need to understand it's not about you. And from The point you get a leadership position until you leave, it will never be about you unless they fuck up. Mistakes, problems, that is the only thing that is ever going to be on your plate. Everything else is about them. And that's what you're signing up for. And anybody that doesn't agree with that kind of mentality, they don't need to be a fucking leader, in my eyes, anyways.
Yeah, it's just like in what you see, in sports. Success goes to the team. The failures wind up on the coach.
Yeah.
And a coach is willing to do that because he knows when his team's getting the praise, he knows he's included in that. He is the head of the team, even though they're not praising him directly. Uh, you know, there's satisfaction in that. He likes to see his guys do well. And as a leader, again, doesn't matter what your style is, as a leader, you want your guys to be successful. And when they're successful, you can sit back and say, that's really cool. I'm glad to see them work like that and do that.
Yeah, exactly. And, as the guys are mentioning in chat, it is always about the team. And, as Rusula said, there are guys that are good at their job get ridden the hardest. And that's absolutely true. Like, guys that I know are good squad leaders, I fucking know they're good squad leaders. When they screw up, I bust their balls harder than anyone else because I know they're capable of more. And I'm going to push them to where not only they reach my level, but they fucking exceed it. And, that's something that I tell guys quite often is there is nothing that makes me happier than when I tell someone they fucked up and then they go do it above and beyond what I could ever expect and can look back at me and, basically say, yep, fuck you, First Sergeant. I did it better than you could have wanted. That, to me, is the best feeling in the world. When they can fucking prove me wrong, that makes my goddamn day. And I wish it could happen more. But when it does happen, like, it's really nice when guys get it right and I don't have to, yell at anybody. Now, granted, usually even when they get it right, I'll find something that they did wrong. Just so
you got to keep them in check, man.
Yeah, you can't let people's heads get too big. But it's the fact that if, and I've talked about before back in the day when I was 1-4 squad lead, guys were constantly coming to me, platoon leaderships and even company HQ came to me and said, hey, your squad is fucking outstanding. I can't believe how good they're doing and stuff. I never went to my guys and were like, yeah, they said this and this and this. Like, I'd say, yeah, company HQ said you guys did a good job. Like, I'm not going to fucking shower guys in compliments because that's when guys get laxed. When they get laxed and they become content with their performance, that's when mistakes start happening. So I'm never going to be like, yep, you guys did an outstanding job. Always do an outstanding job. No. Like, yeah, you guys did it right, but you fucked this up. Fix it. And they will. And that's, why I was able to fucking breed what I still consider the best fucking weapon squad that we ever had. And again, it may not work for some, but it fucking worked for me. But we had the question there in chat, Mr. Pennington. When is Bobby going to actually get into the unit?
Well, I had to get my head out of my butt. In other words, the VR headset. So now that that I'm not using that anymore, I can spend some time doing that, and it should be soon. I want to be able to walk. It's been a long time since I've played first-person shooters, and I know what you guys do is it's a lot more of a thinking man's game, which is why I enjoy it. But at the same time, you do have to coordinate, and I'm a right-handed guy that uses his mouse left-handed because in the old days, I used a joystick in my right hand for moving guys around, and I learned to use the mouse with my left hand and just kept doing it. So uh, I need to get my keyboard set up. I'm probably going to have to get with you, Jeremy, on that. best way to go about it, because I mean, I can operate the mouse on the right-hand side if I want to. I'd just rather not.
Right.
Because, you know, I'm used to the ASD, W, you know, all those keys over there on the left-hand side. I usually have to move them to the right, so you wind up messing up all the key binds that come with
Mm-hmm.
games. So it's probably one of those
Yeah,
things
and
I'm just gonna have to change my layout.
especially with a game like ArmA that has fucking 19 billion goddamn keybinds. Uh, and very quickly, Dobby and Express, thank you guys for the follows and the support to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Um, and you guys just heard something that you very rarely hear outside of when I'm with the guys at Race Department, and that is my first name. You guys pretty much, well, you're never gonna hear me called by Jeremy in the unit in ArmA, aside from when promotion warrants are read, which I can't be promoted again, so you're not going to hear it ever again in ArmA. But at Race Department, we use our full names, so everybody there knows me by my first name instead of, you know, first. Well, majority of the guys in the unit just call me as First Sergeant. But you know, even like Heckman and those guys that, you know, just call me by Brewer or Brubes and stuff like that. That's because in ArmA, I've only ever gone by my last name. So
Yeah.
uh, that's that's something that I know a couple people have mentioned to me, that it's kind of odd to hear me called by my first name. Which is it's even odd for me because most of the people, even in my normal everyday life, don't call me by my first name. I've always gone by my last name. So I'm betting that's going to be a little bit of a hang up for Bobby. That's going to take him some getting used to address me properly. And I may or may not be looking forward to the day when I get to bust his ass on not addressing me as First Sergeant in an official capacity. It may give me a little bit of a smile.
Oh my goodness! Now I know the real reason you're bringing me on there. You bust my ass in a set of
Yeah,
course, and now you're gonna bust my ass in this. You just like riding my butt, man. I want to get paid. I
that's
want to get paid.
I'm telling you, man. I think we'll end up having to change my nickname to the doctor,
Oh
considering how often I
gosh.
give you a prostate exam.
Yeah, that got to get me one of those headsets. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's, you know, go back when I played ball. You know, we all went by our last names.
hmm
We
Yeah, and
all
that's
did, and it tends to be that way. Uh, Anytime you get into a team element.
yeah.
And so I think what I will do, I think I will be able to revert back that mindset. Because, you know, I don't mind calling you Brewer. Jeremy is, that's what I want to call you at Race Department. That's what I'm going to call you at Race Department. You may not like it. You know what? I don't care.
See, you've been hanging out with me too much.
It's
Uh,
what, well, because I like you. So, you
well,
know,
and that's, you know, like you said,
it's that.
it's kind of it's from that team mentality, and it's true. Like, because like I said, in normal everyday life, I don't go by my first name. And that's been a thing ever since I first started playing football back in junior high. I've always gone by my last name. Even my family, which is weird because they have the same fucking last name, but even my family calls me by my last name. Uh, which, like I said, is kind of weird, but you know, I guess it's normal for us.
Dude, you're
But
from Flint. It's okay to be a little bit different.
yeah, well, I blame it on the lead. Not the lead from the water, the lead from the bullets.
Hey,
Yeah,
I just want to
that's
say something that came up in chat there. Rusula, appreciate you saying that. Yeah, if you guys, anything that you can do to help me out, uh, that would be fantastic. Jeremy has I think he has a link to my email. If he doesn't, I'll give him one. But yeah, anything that I can do to come in prepared. Of course, what I would like to do is walk straight off the line into there and nobody ever have to say anything to me because I do such a good job. That's what I want to do. That's just me. I know I'm going to get stuff wrong, so I never expect to come in and not be able to, you know, uh, I know something's going to be said because I know I'm going to make mistakes. But I'm one of those guys that believes in being prepared for what you're going to do if other people are relying on you.
Well, I can tell you in, let's see, what is it now? Over 2 years of doing OSET, I have yet to have anybody do it perfect.
Oh no, and like I say, there's no way that I will, but I do need to be able to execute. I need to get my legs under me, so to speak. Get my coordination back with the keyboard and moving the mouse and aim and stuff like that.
Right.
And and that's stuff I can do on my own time. I'm sure that there's a little bit of training that I can do just for that within the game itself.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that we get people asking oftentimes is, how much experience do I need before I can join, or, just stuff like that. And like, do I need to be prior military, and, that kind of normal stuff. And that's why our training pipeline is set up the way it is, and as long as it is there is no requirement for joining other than owning the game and being able to fucking speak competently in TeamSpeak. Like, that's the only requirement, because we teach you how to do everything else, or at least try to fucking teach you how to do everything else. But I can't, teach you how to go buy a game. I can't teach you to, look up and see if your system can run it. I can't teach you how to fucking, have a decent working goddamn microphone. As Bobby knows, I am a huge fucking audio snob, and I hate people whose microphones sound like dog shit, and I will tell them that their microphone sounds like dog shit. But, we spend a lot of time, obviously, I spend a lot of time training guys for that reason. So we can take someone from knowing absolute dick all to at least, being able to hang in there and, get the job done. And that's why I spent fucking 2 months writing an OSET document to ensure that guys are getting the proper amount of training. That's why I have 3 other OSET instructors that are willing to dedicate fucking, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a week to train guys, so that we can get them to that point, whether they have experience or not. So, it's one of those, yeah, there's shit you can do on your own, but is it needed? Not at all.
Yeah, well, I'm looking right here in chat, so I've got 2 guys, uh, or 3. Yeah, I got to look because there's one side, but already it started, guys willing to help me, and I can't thank you enough. And one thing I want to get out, I have no idea how many guys are military that do this, but if there are any of you listening, I do want to take time to say thank you for your service. If not for you, this country wouldn't be what it is. So I just want to say that. That's from the heart.
Bobby getting all mushy and shit.
Dude, that's, hey,
Oh, I know.
special people.
Oh, I know. Uh, Bobby loves him some red, white, and blue, and
Oh,
yeah, we'll leave it at that. But to kind of wrap it up here, as we're kind of getting to that time, to just kind of what's your, I guess, closing thoughts, if you will, Bobby? What do you where do you see sim racing going for you? Is it something that you're gonna continue doing going forward, which is kind of a no-brainer question? And what do you see kind of in your future as far as ArmA? Do you see it as something that you're gonna kind of fall into as much as you have with sim racing, or do you see it more so as kind of a hobby to do when you're bored, I guess?
well, it first, let me address the sim racing stuff. On a personal level, that's what I was talking about earlier with the R Factor 2 stuff, and me and you doing a
Mm-hmm.
race team, and and trying to get better. I mean, I think it's cool to get better, especially with friends. It's neat to watch each other grow. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking to grow race department into areas that it's not been, just like you are. You know, I have a passion for it if I'm involved in something. I'm putting my time in, so I want it to be where we can get all these guys that do ArmA. If you like a car, if you enjoy cars, you couldn't help but having a good time once a week with us in some simple race that we do, one of the little 30-minute races. You will find yourself doing it more and more. Uh, I think you guys would really enjoy it, but that's, you know, that's what I see. I see us, I see you and I together with everybody else there, uh, trying to make race department, a set of course, all that, trying to make it better. And I do think that we will making great strides there. With ArmA, what I think I'm probably going to find out is how much I enjoy the teamwork, and I'll probably be very involved in it. That's my initial reaction to it. Because like I say, I love me some teamwork. Golf is all about individual, and I like that because it all lands on your shoulders. I was a pitcher in baseball. It all landed on my shoulders. At least it felt like it. Even though my guys wouldn't let me feel that way, that's how I felt. But with this, yeah, I love me some teamwork. So I think it's going to be cool, and I think that part alone is going to be addictive for me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and yeah, to echo that, I mean, I definitely see race department growing. As I was saying earlier, big things planned for race department, and hopefully we'll be able to see that through to fruition. And you know, in ArmA, I foresee you, I guess, kind of falling in love with the community. Um, Not just with, you know, like playing the game, like just getting to know the guys in the unit, you know, and knowing that there's, you know, 200 some guys, and you could be talking to any fucking one of them in TeamSpeak at a moment's notice, is always pretty cool. And getting to know those guys and hear their stories, and, you know, talk with them on a daily basis and stuff is always very cool and very eye opening at how amazing a community like this can be, as far as bringing together people from all over the world with that common interest, like we talked about with the race department. Um, so I think that's gonna wrap it up for us here tonight. Bobby, I definitely appreciate you getting to hang out for a couple of hours and bullshitting with me, as we oftentimes do.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. It's nice to get in here and actually communicate a little bit with the guys that I see sometimes pop up in chat when I'm watching the streams from the race. It's pretty cool. And you know, I'm looking at Russell over here. He says I'm from the UK. You're just a cousin. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we all started there. So, you know, when I talk about the service, I even think guys in other countries, because what it is, they represent freedom. People that don't understand that is warriors plus free. So, yeah, that's the cool part about it. And I think what you're talking about there with the guys, that's probably going to be where I really get. I'm really going to enjoy it. But I thank you for allowing me to be part of it. I really enjoyed it. I had no. This is my first time doing something like this, so I hope I didn't make it look completely stupid.
It was good. Uh, so yeah, again, thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I did. Bobby did. I always love doing these podcasts. It's a great time for me to be able to interact and bullshit with you guys in chat, and answer questions and stuff that normally I don't always get to answer when I'm in the middle of an operation, or in the middle of class, or a race, or whatever. And you know, we're back full time. Podcast will again be going next Wednesday. This one, as soon as it's over, will be pulled off of everything. If for some reason you missed part of the podcast and wanted to go back and catch the rest of it, make sure you check out my Patreon, where the links are down below, and you can get early access to it through there. Otherwise, you got to wait until next week. And there's some other stuff on there that you can, you know, become a part of the podcast, even be a guest on the podcast if you would like. And of course, Discord and gear and all of that good stuff. You know, all of those links to give me money so I can continue to pay my bills because you guys love me. And I love having my lights on. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll be back live here in a little over an hour or so for the squirrel mission with WeeWoo. And hopefully I will see you all then. Until tomorrow, or I guess later tonight. Later.